Good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get going here. And in case you had not already heard, there are some surplus eggs from Empower Boone here, which are fresh, so they're good to get. But over there in the back. So thanks to Irma who brought those in. And if you want to pick those up before you depart today, make sure they go to a good home. Okay, I'm assuming that's your home, but if you know somebody else that could use some eggs, feel free. All right. All right. Well, today we are going to have this is a one-off. We're going to do an Ask the Pastor. I had this as Ask the Pastors because when I put this slide together, I thought Pastor Richard was going to be here too. But he's actually helping out this weekend at Emmanuel Lindenwood, so their pastor was going to be out of town. So he's covering down there. So you're stuck with just me today. So anything that Pastor Richard would answer, we're just going to have to leave unanswered, I guess. But this is always a fun kind of thing that kind of a little interlude for us. Next weekend we will have, as you see up there, Angie Nitz, who's our director of youth discipleship, will be here with us, and she's presenting. This is information for the entire congregation, talking about our revamp of our confirmation program that's coming up this fall. So we've already met with confirmation families to kind of talk about that. But this is so that anybody that wants to come and know more about it, whether or not you have a kid that's here in the confirmation program, we think it's good for the congregation to be aware of kind of what we're doing and why we're doing it. So come. If you know of anybody else that might be interested, bring them along too. It should be a good presentation and good conversation there. So each of the weeks ahead too, as we're going through the rest of July and then August, we've got different things coming up. So one of the notes too is next week we're going to have a call meeting here at the start of the discipleship time at 10:15 because we need to. We've identified that the transitional leadership team has identified a candidate who is a rostered LCMS church worker to serve as a teacher in our school for next year, for middle school, for English language arts, and doing a couple other things. And she'd be a fantastic fit for us. So for us to do that, because she is an LCMS church worker, the congregation would need to issue a call. So that's a step that we would need to take. So we want to share information about her with you next weekend, and Lord willing, call her so we can get her here on staff for this fall. So that's part of next Sunday as well. And in future weeks, we're going to have and this is not in the order in which they're happening, but we're going to have a presentation from our Belize servant team, kind of sharing what they've done there in this past year's trip. We're going to have a reception for our new teachers before we have the start of the school year. That is going to be coming up. We're going to have there's a couple other things, and we're going to do a couple of like one-shot studies too for the spaces that we have there. So that's all coming up. It'll be in the Connector newsletter, so do please be sure to read that, and we'll let you know before things happen in advance there. But before we dive in today for Ask the Pastor, I invite you to join me in a prayer. Father, we thank you for the gift of your word. We thank you for this community you've brought us into here at Emmanuel. We pray your blessing upon those gathered today, that would be guided by your Spirit and your word. We might see your love for us at work. We ask this, Father, in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so we can go ahead and start. I don't have anything particularly lined up here, and I didn't get any emails with questions from folks in advance. So we'll just kind of open the floor at this point and then see what we got. So did anybody have any question? I know Cindy already asked one that maybe we'll talk to as a group in a moment. But yeah, Tracy. Oh, yeah, that's a good question. We do have, if we call the middle school teacher next week, we have heard that it's highly likely that she will accept that call. But we do have one position opening if Kathy Shallow is the one that we're looking to call for the middle school. We do have one position that'd be open in first grade, I think, right now. So we have one first grade teacher in. Because of the number of kids we've got, we'd like to have 2 sections for that grade level. And the TLT has talked to a few people. We had a candidate who was very promising, but was not licensed and needed to do some things to make that happen. And at this point was not open to doing that. So she stepped away from the process and interviewed a few more folks this week. We're going to interview some folks, and this was, I think, through Indeed.com. And the one person that we didn't know what kind of fit they'd be, and then the other two just didn't show up. So probably don't want to hire those folks. But yeah, so keep that in your prayers, please, for that. But I am very thankful that we've got the staffing that we do, and actually pretty early on identifying folks, and we've got some good folks. We're really looking ahead to this next year with the school, and I think a lot of great things are going to be happening. The transitional leadership team has been doing a really good job getting things prepped and going into this with the right mindset. So yeah, very thankful for that. And then as you heard too in the video announcements, or if you saw in the main thing newsletter that went out, we've got our call committee together. We haven't had our first meeting yet, but that'll be in the near future when Lois Stewart from the district office is able to join us. We're going to be looking to call a candidate to serve as principal starting next summer is our goal, so they can be in and kind of get things going. And from what I've heard, it's good to be able to try to identify somebody and maybe even issue a call in like October, November timeframe this year for a principal, so that they can kind of be prepared and do what they need to do at their current location, thinking that they'd start here in summer 25. So that's kind of where things are at in there. So yeah, thank you. Any other, I guess, questions, theological or otherwise? Yes. Yeah. 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 Well, we have a large sanctuary too. If we had a smaller sanctuary, it would look like there'd be more people in there. I know of congregations that would love to have the number of people that we do. One of the things that we've actually, Aaron and Pastor Richard and I met for a couple days this week for the whole day, and kind of looked at worship services and ideas, and including worship service times. And what we're going to do for the time being is we're going to keep the service times we have. We're going to make some changes with some of the services and what's happening in those, we think in a good and constructive way. But on Sunday mornings, we actually have 3 different services. So other congregations, maybe they might have a repeat of one service or 2 services or something, but we have 3 distinct services on Sunday morning. And there's reasons why people go to, let's say, the heritage service at 8 o'clock. They prefer. Sometimes people, we were talking and said, some people just like going at 8 o'clock and having that be the first thing in the day. And maybe I see some heads nodding here. Some people go to the 8 o'clock service because they like the historic liturgy and the pipe organ, bell choirs, things like that. Other heads are nodding. Okay, we're not wrong. Okay, good. So that there's a reason for that service. And then our 9:15 service, the bridge service, we have by design as a shorter service for families with younger kids or people who are maybe less familiar with kind of what we as Lutheran Christians practice in our worship. It's a service that has elements of both the traditional hymnody and praise music. It's kind of streamlined. So when we know people go to that because they like that format, or they like the shorter service, or honestly, the 9 o'clock to 9:30, probably even closer to 9:30, is like prime time for worship on Sunday mornings across America, from what we understand to be the case. So there's people that go to those services for that reason. And then similar with 11 o'clock, some like our Horizon service. Some people like the praise team and kind of that informal feel, more heads nodding. And some people like, well, it's just like 11 o'clock, the time for that. So for now, we're keeping the services that we have on Sunday morning. We're keeping the Saturday service because, again, we're making some changes there too. But we found that people appreciate having the Saturday service too, because sometimes they can't go on Sundays, or sometimes it varies from week to week. But there's that. So we don't have a full house right now. We've contemplated actually something that kind of had been thought about even before COVID, was maybe like roping off parts of the pews to get people to sit together. I know if you really like your one seat way over on the corner, not naming any names, like I like my seat, but there's something to be said for the people being together so you can hear each other sing. and it feels like a fuller space there too, because we are blessed with a very spacious sanctuary. The double edge of that, though, is that if you don't have a critical mass of whatever the number is, it can feel emptier. Which is part of the reason why sometimes if we have a small funeral or other service, like a prayer service or something like that, we do that out in the narthex at the historic altar, and we can configure chairs. We actually had a memorial service a few weeks back that we had out there, and they were like, "Well, we think maybe we'll have like 75 to 100 people." I don't think we can fit that many back there. But we ended up, I think we had 48 chairs, like with the big chairs that we had. We got those set up, and it felt like a really good space. They ended up having maybe like 60 some people, and they knew people were going to have to stand in kind of the standing room area there. I know it was a shorter service, but it felt really good. And I think it really depends. You want to have a balance between the worship space and then what's going on in it. And when there is a dissonance between those, that's when it can feel like it's empty or what have you. We're also, sorry, I don't want to neglect our 11 o'clock Wednesday morning service. We have our midweek service. We call that our flashback service because it's the same readings and text as the previous weekend. And I think we're probably going to rename that one to make it maybe a little bit more intelligible for folks that are like, "What's a flashback service?" So we're looking to do that, and then we have our North service too, up at our Timberlane campus, which we're going to keep that at the new 9 o'clock time, and that seems to be pretty good there. So yeah, hopefully that helps. No changes yet in terms of the times, but we're open to that. I was thinking actually this morning, even now that you mentioned about what if let's kind of straw poll here. What if we had, because we do the one combined service on the Independence Day weekend, the outside service. What if during the summer, say during the months of part of June and July, maybe beginning of August or something like that, what if we just had one service, not for the whole congregation, but on Sunday morning? We still had our Saturday service for people that would want to come on Saturdays, but what if we had one service on Sunday morning that was kind of a blend of different things in the summer well, I didn't say 9:15. Let's say we put it 9:30, so it's different for everybody. I'm brainstorming here. 8 o'clock. Well, and we appreciate having multiple options so people can make on the fly decisions like that. But what do you think? Would that be something that for a short period in the summer, just to bring, because people travel in the summer? What do you guys think about that? Like, okay, because there are trade-offs, right? Because some people, if they like their time, what I think though is if we did do that, and again, the caveat, we're thinking about this real time here. If we did do that, to make sure that we had everybody, like all the three different services represented, I think, if we had something from the pipe organ, we had something with the praise team, we had something like that. So we'd maybe look to do that. We'll see, but we're not going to do it this summer because we don't have much of this summer left. This would take a lot of planning to do, but maybe next summer, if this seems like something that you guys think it'd be nice to have, like a good number of people together, just kind of, okay. All right, well, I'll run that up the poll with the Pastor Richard and Aaron and our elders and vestry, and kind of see. I think there's something to be said for it. So, yeah. Yeah, the outdoor service, yeah. Yeah, feeling, and because that's the thing too, is we have people that go to this service or this service, and never the twain shall meet, except on Independence Day weekend when we have one service, right? I love seeing people from North Campus down here. Some people go back and forth. Others are kind of like, this is what we do, and not in a bad way. Our folks from who normally come to the Saturday service, it was great. I talked to some folks after the service, and they said, I really appreciate it. Like, I didn't realize we had so many young people, or we had this, or like, I haven't seen this person for. Go say hi, go have a snow cone or something. But yeah, Alan. if you see space, and I'd spin it this way. I don't know if the empty pew is so much an incentive as the person that's not there. It's not the pew that matters; it's the person. And if there's somebody you can think of that, I know somebody that, I wonder, do they have a church home, or do they know Jesus, or could they benefit from what we have? And I'd have that as the incentive. And we're going to be talking more about that too in the months ahead here. Um, so yeah, I'd say that if you got space next to you in your pew, like how can I bring somebody here, not to fill the space, but so they can share it with me. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the question was, since our plan was to have an SMP vicar to come become a pastor as visitation pastor here. Pastor Richard and I are doing hospital visits and homebound visits as best we can. So if any point you are in the hospital, like a visit, let us know. And if there's ever like emergency cases, and we find it, sometimes people don't tell us about it till after they're out of the hospital. It's like, well, let us know. And as we can, we'd love to be able to do that. But we got a lot of people, and so we would love to have a visitation pastor. And so we don't have a plan right now. We want to make sure that everything is um, everybody's comfortable with where things are at financially and staffing wise, because we're understaffed, and we're trying to do the best we can with what we have. But we want to make sure we're now in this new fiscal year, um, starting with July, which we think is going to be a really good thing for us. We got uh, Becky in the church office as our director of operations, and she's doing a phenomenal job. Uh, we're continuing to be an improving place with the legacy debt, kind of the what we owe ourselves, internal debt, not external debt. So that's coming together. So we want to make sure all that's together, because we've found that people can be very maybe gun shy or wary of doing things like that would be a little bit of a stretch until they're sure, okay, things are good here. But we want to keep doing what we're doing, and if there's ever a time where you'd love a visit, just let us know. Wow. Sure, sure. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that, and we went you our flock here, like we're talking about this weekend, right? To know that if there's something that you have as a concern, you don't feel like you have to put up a brave front or things like that, because we've been there like ourselves, and you walk through that with people who've gone through all kinds of different things. So yeah, just let us know. We don't yet. We're working with our elders to kind of expand it, here at Emmanuel for many years or decades. The elders have kind of been uh, communion assistants has been the elder role, and so we're looking to change that to be more expanded as people who assist in pastoral care, because we have a large congregation, and connecting out with our folks. And so we've talked to the elders and kind of laid out what we'd like to do. And some folks have said, no, I just want to be a deacon and assist with community distribution, and that's fine. And others like, no, let's do this. And we're inviting some other folks to come in as elders. So we're building that up, and we're going through actually a study as our elders. We meet monthly ish. We're doing a book study and kind of talking about this and looking where things are going. So that I think that would be great. That if as we get that together, that we have elders who are not just maybe assisting with visitations or things, but also who are more regularly keeping in touch with our people. So we're looking at different ways to do it, whether it's alphabetically or more, I think it's probably better by like regions of the area and kind of getting people connected that way. We thought about, well, you usually, like we talked about before, people who come to this service or this service or this service, and then have elders that are maybe, oh, okay, I'm going to emphasize this service or this service, and so you can see them, regularly and be able to kind of share. So yeah, that's something we're looking on there. Yeah, Kim. Yeah, you want to talk about that? You have to bring tea. Yeah, and this is Grand Friendship is a great idea that Kim had, and came to us and said, "Well, could we be doing something like this?" Yes, definitely. And a number of people have come together and done that, going out and visiting folks who are either shut in or homebound or largely homebound, and yeah, it's a blessing. Is it primarily people who are members at Emmanuel who are being visited? It's like Emmanuel people caring for our neighbors. Yeah. Northwoods has always confused me because it's on the south side of town, and I'm like, but no, but yeah, but Northwoods and Heritage Woods. Okay. Well, Northwoods is okay too. Yeah, different kind of thing. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, let God be praised. Yeah, so we don't have. It's kind of surprising. We don't have an overabundance of retired pastors in the area. So Pastor Wagner, who was here preaching last weekend, he's enjoying being re-retired, and so I think we've got him on the preaching schedule. Actually, only one more time this year up at North, and that's in September. And he and Deb are doing a lot of traveling. I think he's willing to help out with some things, as needed. We have I don't know if you guys know Sarah Quartz's dad is a pastor, Reverend Michael Wolf, and he's now they're at Cherry Valley, but he's been since they've moved out here. He's been doing a lot, helping out. Has been doing filling a vacancy down in Rochelle, among other. He was out at Pecatonica for a while. He's been a blessing to us. He's had some pretty substantial health issues himself, but he's been helping out there. And then we've had Reverend Steve Bauer came into the area a few years back from Colorado, and he's actually been helping out at Resurrection in Rockford. And he just finished up. He'd been kind of contracted as a vacancy pastor there, and just finished that up this summer. So I'm not sure what Steve's plan is, but maybe we could kind of get him helping out like that. We had previously, I don't know if anybody had met Pastor Galen Sully, he's in the larger area. He's in the district. He had helped out with visitations before the pandemic some too, and a retired pastor and doing that, but he's kind of stepped back. from that. But yeah, I think it's an option. Yeah. He is, well, Pastor Pollock, again, living in Elgin. It's a little bit of a hike for him over here. But we do have him scheduled to preach one weekend coming up in the fall. So we have that. But as far as visitations, we try to look for like the folks that are more local. But yeah, Dennis, do you have? There is talk of not having the service on Wednesday evenings. So that used to be a thing that we would have here on the Wednesday evening service, and we found that it tends to be something that we will keep doing for Advent and Lent, kind of those special seasons of the church year, but not kind of on the regular. We do have the Wednesday 11 a.m. service, which if people are working, they can't get to that, but we do have that as a midweek option for folks. And we do have a regular, I don't know, maybe 20 to 30 folks who are regulars for that, for the Wednesday service, which currently Flashback, I haven't come up with a new name for it yet. So if anybody has any bright ideas, Highlight is a contender. We're wondering if that's going to bring in people from the dispensary down the street, but hey, not a bad thing. Mm, gotcha. Oh, that's fair. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we want people to be aware of before they show up, because it is. We try to let people know too that with our current preaching rotation, we're usually Pastor Richard and I are switching back and forth here, and then whenever we preach a weekend here, so like next weekend I'll be at North preaching up there, but it's the same text, it's the same sermon. So if you come, you can enjoy a different fellowship with the people there, but it's going to be the same message. Maybe we tweak it a little bit, but we want people to know in advance. Some people come both weeks and don't recognize it was the same sermon. Like, okay, it's just God spoke to me in a different way. Yeah. So yeah, that's good things there. Any other kind of questions or things? Yeah, Kim. We Yeah, we actually used to start it at 11:15. We did, and we found that there's something about finishing the service at noon or round about noon that makes a big psychological difference for folks. So that if you're getting out of worship at like 12:15 or 12:20, it's too late. But we because we'd done it for, I don't know, how long did we do that? It was like a year or something. With like, yeah, it was a while. We did it as 11:15. So yeah, that our discipleship hour is our discipleship 45 minutes, which is a challenge. Yeah, and we by design we have some buffer time at the beginning of the 11 o'clock service, because like my wife and takes our kids to Christ for Kids, and she goes to Parent Connection. And then that wraps up like around 11, picks up the kids. So they're not actually in the sanctuary till, 11:05, 11:10-ish or something. And so we have a couple of songs at the beginning, because also the pastors need time to get in there after this class. So it's like we thought about it a little bit, so to make sure that we have that coverage. But yeah, we did think about that. And Aaron and Pastor Richard and I talked about that this week too. And we're going to keep it at 11. Yeah, it's possible though. In the future, we didn't want to make too many changes all at once here. So maybe in like a year we'll reassess. And the service times were not written on the two tablets with the 10 Commandments, right? So we want it to be something that's living, that connects with the needs that we have as a community and a congregation. I saw another hand go up. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's the former St. Paul's. Yeah, so right downtown, west side of the river. I'm trying to remember what the name of the street is there, but it's a beautiful sanctuary. What's that? Horseman. Yes, because it was like a distinctive name. So yeah, Horseman Street. It's a lovely sanctuary that they have, and I've been over there when we've done our midweek with the Lenten services with the preaching rotation. Been over there to preach and some other services that we've had. Um, so yeah, they're right down there. That right. Was it right after I got here? Right, was it around about that time frame that the congregation had two sites because they had. Was it the former St. Matthew's? Was that congregation closed and they kind of gave the campus there to St. Paul's, um, and the congregation there it looked at the options and at St. Paul looked at the options and said, okay, well we can't afford to have these two campuses. Which one's going to serve us better for going into the future? And the congregation elected to go for uh, the one that's kind of to the northwest, a little farther out, the former St. Matthew's. Um, and there are a number of maintenance, like some big ticket maintenance things at St. Paul because it's an older building. That happens. So they elected to move out there. There were some folks though that really liked the building, really liked the space, and a remnant, if you will, elected to kind of I'm putting best construction on things here, to see what they could do to remain in that space, and then they ended up being able to get the space because the congregation sold it, and I'm not exactly sure how that worked, but they worked with the Northern Illinois District to get chartered as Resurrection, and so Pastor Bauer has been serving there as a vacancy pastor. They're not, I don't think they're in a size. I don't know what their membership is. I know there are some people there very much caring about the community around them because it's an underserved community and has a lot of folks that can be blessed by ministry there. But they had a school, and I think that's all closed out now because part of the reason they wanted to stay was to have the school. Last year, I think they partnered with Alpine Academy. Roy, is that right? Do you know? Um, and for pre-K, and I think they ended up closing that down for this coming year. I don't know if they had it last year. I'm sorry. I'm trying to recall. I don't think they did this year. Okay. So they're now in a point where they need to think, okay, what do we want to do? Do we want to see what we can do here or be elsewhere? Because they're not in a place where they could. I don't know if maybe they could support a part-time pastor. I'm not sure. I think it's like 30 folks or something. But it is a ministry opportunity, so we'll see what happens. We're going to have our circuit. I don't know if you guys know this, but we meet as pastors of the circuit here, kind of in the Rockford area, on a monthly basis during kind of the academic year. So our next meeting is going to be September 10th. We're getting back together, and we meet. We have worship, we have communion, we have a Bible study, and we kind of talk about what's going on in the area around us. So we will have that, and I'm reasonably confident that hearing about what's going on at Resurrection will be on the agenda for the day. We will have also a circuit forum coming up, which if anybody from the congregation is invited to attend. Usually we have some folks from congregational leadership going. That'll be in September as well. I want to say it's like the 15th or whatever that Sunday is after our circuit forum, or after our circuit pastors meeting. And that'll be a time for us to kind of look ahead to the convention that we're going to have. So every 3 years we have a district convention for the Northern Illinois District, and that will be coming up in March 2025. So if there are overtures or things that the circuits or congregations want to bring forward to submit to the convention, we do that as part of the circuit forum. We'll also elect a new circuit visitor, Pastor Bob Rupp Jr., who served for many years at Redeemer, our Redeemer it's just Redeemer in Rockford. He's got some health issues too, so he's done great for us for this past term and even before then. But he's stepping aside, and so we're going to nominate somebody else to do that. Not it, but we'll have that as part of that circuit forum too. So yeah, any other questions? Yeah. Oh, crazy question. Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Uh-huh. Oh, oh. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's not knowing the pastor, not knowing his situation. Is he in Kenosha? Did he do the invocation at the Republican National Convention? I looked him up too. Um, yeah, yeah. Again, I didn't even. He looked familiar, and I'm trying to remember if I know him. But so let's speak in the abstract, right? There are certain things that you, we, as outside his context or his community, might look on and be kind of like, "What?" Um, but sometimes, and I think this is a good thing. You think about, okay, what is appropriate to the community I'm called to serve, or the people that I'm called to pastor to. And sometimes people will, if you are in a different cultural context or community context, you make choices that will help to make bridges to the people that you're called to serve. Sometimes, I'm not saying this is the case with this fellow, but you do it to stand out and like uh, to to try to be distinct. And sometimes that's helpful. Sometimes it's not helpful. Sometimes and this is the thing too, is like we don't know hearts and minds. We don't know intent. So I don't know. Sometimes I see something, I'm like, tell me why you're doing that. Like, I want to know, because I think we should always have an understanding of the why, right? The why are we doing whatever, whether it's why we have the service times we do, or why we have the worship that we, or, why do we dress the way that we do? Like, I think that's important. So there's a group of pastors who circuit out in, where was it? I'm probably going to get it wrong. Let's say Nebraska, and they. I was at the Synod convention. I was representing at the Synod convention, the last one we had up in Milwaukee, and they wore cassocks. So if you know what a cassock is, it's like the black pastor's robes that kind of from neck to ankle kind of thing, button down. Maybe think that's more of a Roman Catholic kind of thing, or which Roman Catholic church, some churches do that, some parishes do that, and an Orthodox church will usually have pastors or priests, dressed that way. And kind of wonder, okay, what's that about? It's like, are they just trying to make a statement or whatever? But I learned this, and this was a beneficial thing for me, that the community that they serve had seen an outflux of members from mainline and you Western churches to the Orthodox churches there in that community, because they appreciated some of the externals and the kind of the other aspects of worship there. So the pastors as a circuit met and decided, hey, what if we were to do this? Would this be a salutary thing? And so they all adopted wearing, because that's adiaphora, that's not commanded or forbidden. And it's like, well, let's do that. And that actually was a way for them to connect to the folks. And actually, I think some folks came back to their congregations, because it's thinking about, well, why do we do what we do? And that, yeah, the Orthodox Church has a lot of great things about speaking to the timelessness of our faith, and that we are connected with something that is transcending, right? There's a lot of beauty in that. There's some theological things that maybe aren't things that we would agree with, but they're, I'd say, ultimately our family and faith in Christ, different part of the house. But yeah, so whether this guy, is he doing that because that is a blessing to his community? Is he doing it for something else? I don't know. But and then the families is if that's their family's choice to have head coverings and things, like, well, it's adiaphron, but what is it? How do you use that to point to Jesus? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The ornate vestments. Yeah. Sure. Sure. Well, and that's and there's different expressions of our Lutheran faith is ultimately, what's our confession of the three solas, the word alone, faith alone, grace alone, and Christ alone, the fourth one there, through faith alone. But there's different manifestations of that. But I do think, and I'm not criticizing President Harrison here. I think it's always good for us to be mindful of the context in which we're serving, and what is most helpful in pointing to Jesus. And there's something to be said for maybe people have never seen that before, and these kids are like, "What's that dude wearing?" Um, but it can be a teaching thing too, because maybe they don't. But unless you talk about it, you don't just necessarily show up and it's like, oh, it's like, well, you know what? You might wonder, like, why am I wearing all these? Why is this dude up in front in a dress? You know, it's like this white robe kind of thing. So, well, this is called an alb, or this is a stole, this is a chasuble, and each of these different. So you use it to teach, and if you can use it to teach, great, because then maybe like, oh, that's kind of that ecclesiastical bling, man. Yeah, he's representing. Uh, but it's a different kind of thing. So yeah, but it's a fair question. Yeah, and one more because then we gotta. I apparently have a service at 11 o'clock. So yeah. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, it varies across the country. In the LCMS, some would be what you call very high church, where they have kind of all the kind of aspects of liturgic order very carefully thought out and followed. They will have maybe even. I think this would actually be kind of cool to have here at some point, just to see what it is or experience it. But a thurifer, who's somebody who has incense, and they have a thurible, is the thing, and like would swing it. And so as you process in and swing, there's a visual of the smoke. There's the olfactory component of the sweet smell of the incense, and they come up and you have like a blessing of the altar, and there's things you think that's orthodox or whatever. But no, that's actually something there's a reason for doing that, and there's scriptural connections to it, and it engages the senses in a different way than maybe we're accustomed to. So it takes us out of maybe the complacency that we fall into. And it's not that we do it all the time, but what if we did that? And it's like, oh, this is a practice that Christians do, maybe not here normally, but in other parts of the world. So it'd be very high church. Others are be what you very call low church, and it's not like a bad or good thing, but you think about the why and how does that point to Jesus. So, are you trying to sneak in a last question, real quick? Real quick. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was Wyoming. Maybe it was, I don't know. I have to go back and try to remember what it was. Yeah, but I was thinking about the pastors in the circuit, that the Catholics and everything. Okay, well, I got to wrap up. Thank you. This is a great conversation. I never know what we're going to get here. But do please come back and join us next week. It's important that we have folks from the congregation here for that call meeting at the start of the class at the discipleship time at 10:15, and then feel free to stick around for Angie's presentation and bring your questions there. Thank you.